Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Hey everyone, welcome back to The Wilder Ride, where we are getting wilder by the minute, a podcast that celebrates the films of Gene Wilder 1 minute at a time. And for our second season, we have been looking at the film Blazing Saddles, and today we look at it one, come on girls, minute at a time. I'm your host, I'm Alan Sanders.
I'm your co-host, Walt Murray, and I knew that was going to be your line. I knew that's what you were going to use.
And in the background, joining us for the very first time on this Monday, we have Chris Korman. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, well, thank you for having me on. I'm glad to do this.
Now,
this is fun.
Now, folks, if that last name sounds familiar, we didn't just randomly flip through LinkedIn or the phone book, look for somebody with the last name Korman for a clever tie-in. Chris is actually the son of the late Harvey Korman.
Yes, and I'm happy. I love talking about Blazing Saddles, and anytime I can share stories about Blazing Saddles, my father, I'm happy to do so.
It's been fantastic. It's amazing. You and I talked probably a little over 2 months ago now when we were just sort of at the start. And I said, well, we've got these minutes. They'd be perfect, but we're not going to be getting to you for about 2 months. Are you okay holding? And you actually said that that was fine.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not going anywhere. My hairline is going, but I'm not going anywhere.
You're in good company there, or bad company, or bald company, whatever.
Well, you've got that covered. I'll let you have that.
Yeah, I'm definitely in that camp.
Hey, I'm 51, so let's put in perspective. I mean, I'm the same age as the Burnett Show,
and so am I. So
really, well, you guys don't sound like that. You guys sound too young to be,
Well, we're just immature.
Yeah, that's exactly it. My wife said I still have a 14-year-old brain, and she wishes I'd grow up.
Me too.
Yeah, I've had that speech.
I'm surprised I'm not in therapy. When you have your father who is either a Green Martian or a cross-dressing Jewish yenta on television, you have to wonder why I'm not in therapy. Really, seriously, folks.
Good point.
Thank you.
Well, hey, I'm on the flip side of that. I was raised with a military father who rose to the rank of colonel, so I can actually say I had to salute Colonel Sanders.
Oh, God.
So
was he lightly breaded? Or
original recipe?
He was original recipe. He was original hardcore.
Yeah, well, so in this podcast today, folks, you've got the son of a movie and TV star, the son of a colonel in the Army, and the son of an FBI agent. So this is going to be a show.
Talk about one messed up triangle coming together here.
This is a psychiatrist's dream come true.
Oh, you can throw in cross-dressing Jewish comedians from Chicago.
Oh, so
my dad's not from Chicago.
Your dad's not from Chicago.
Yes,
he said his dad.
People don't know this. He and Shelley Berman went to Goodman Theater together.
So when did your dad start in the acting world?
Oh, gosh, he came out in 60. I think one of his first thing was Route 66, a Gidget, a few Jack Bennies, a Skeleton.
So your entire life, he was...
I could go through it all. I really could. It's scary how much I know about this shit, and I wasn't even born yet.
Yeah, so I was going to say, so your entire life, he was in Hollywood, and he was in TV and movies.
Yeah, I think if you want to be fair, I think, with all the, back then there was only 3 channels. So you made your rounds of the casting people. So before he knew it, he covered ABC and CBS casting people. They knew him right away. So it was like he did, like I said, Munch's Hazel as a few Skeleton, a Jack Benny. I don't think he did Flintstones until 65. And he did 13 episodes of Flintstones. And he was shocked that Gazoo became this iconic thing.
Oh, yeah. I remember as a kid watching and thinking how cool it was they added this little spaceman who's got these magic powers.
It's the most amazing thing. We were doing some promos for the Vignettes special coming up yesterday, and one of the interviewers said, "Did you ever do voiceovers?" And I said, "Yeah, I've done some." He says, "Did you ever do anything for Disney? Not Disney, Hanna-Barbera?" I said, "Yes." He said, did you do the Flintstones?" I mean, yes. Were you the voice of the Great Gazoo? Yes. Now, the interesting thing I was only about 13 of those episodes that had the Great Gazoo in it, and it was an enormously popular character. As a matter of fact, some years back, I traveled for Hanna-Barbera. They had these huge conventions and seminars where collectors collect cells. And the cells with the Great Gazoo on it are worth lots of money. And I never realized how, I still get the little guy and people are, collectors, on eBay and stuff, and they want my autograph. And it was a very popular character, the Great Gazoo. I just made him sort of, dum-dum, very, superior and arrogant and elite. I didn't know what to do. I'm really not a very good voiceover actor. That's a special talent these people have. Like the people on The Simpsons are so brilliant. And they can, most of them, there's only 6 actors, and they do about 50 characters. So I'm not quite in that league. When I first started doing the Flintstones, Joe Barbera would be directing them. Hannah was more, on the creative side and drawing and stuff like that. They were wonderful guys.
But most people assume that character was from the Jetsons because it was a space thing. Mm-hmm. So people can figure out, why is there a spaceman in the Flintstones? So it didn't seem to really fit.
Well, I mean, and this is stretching my mind back to when I was, let's say, 8, but wasn't it that he was banished from his area because he had been a bad little gazoo and he needed to earn back the favor of those, and by being nice and good and learning the lessons of what it's like to help others less powerful than he?
Yes. If you asked me the name of the planet, I couldn't tell you. But no, remember, he also did the original movie, The Man Called Flintstone, the James Bond spoof. There was a feature-length movie that came out before the Flintstones started, and he did 5 voices for that.
Wow.
Yeah, but if you ask my father, and if he were alive, he'd say, I was nowhere in the same breath of those people on The Simpsons who did 8, 9 voices each. My father really never gave credit for how good he really was. But that wasn't his forte, wasn't voiceovers. But because he was classically trained at Goodman, he really could do everything. He just got pigeonholed doing sketch comedy. And that's how Danny Kaye really kind of set him up to be known as a great sketch comedian. But if you ask him, in the vernacular of the business, he considered himself a Renaissance performer. He could do it all. That's how I think he would want to be remembered, not just as a sketch comedian, but a very versatile artist.
Well, I think that comes through, and we've talked a lot about how his character sort of stands out by being so refined. He's almost got this delivery that in anybody else's hands would have looked either fake or like he was overacting, and yet with Harvey Korman, his portrayal in this movie specifically of Hedley Lamar is dead on. It's exactly what that role needed, and I think he's always had that ability to know just how far to push something.
And it is hard, and most people don't understand this, and you make a very good point, is when you're doing physical comedy, you're doing humor that is very subtextual, you have to assume that is the audience going to get it. So the actor has to take a beat and hold and think, how long is this laugh going to last? And it just seems really almost shocking to me that my father had this meter in his head. He always knew how long to hold for a laugh, even in a movie.
And it's very tough. Now, and by today's standards, now they don't even do that anymore. They don't even let you have those pauses. They feel like, oh, it's dead air, keep moving. But Gene Wilder, they all knew how effective that pause was, not just for comedic timing, but like you said, give the audience a second to laugh so they don't miss the next line.
Right, and it's and of course with post production with sweetening, they make every joke on every sitcom nowadays. You think, oh my God, is Laurie Bart writing this? Everything is funny. Well, that's not true because they sweetened the show afterwards. Now, I think that laugh track destroyed a lot of shows. For Blazing Saddles and Hiding His Eyes, a lot of those movies that Mel does, you have to really think everything that Mel says or does, there's always a subtext behind it. Like there's a line in the movie in the office with some Pedkins, see snatch.
Right. Yeah, we had fun with.
Years it takes before I had to realize what that meant.
Oh, we had a great time talking about it because we talked about how snatch does mean to steal, to take, to rob, but it also could mean a woman's vagina. So I wonder how they meant it.
Well, I'm 7 years old, and I first see that, and I'm thinking, okay, I know there's a double entendre here. I'm 7, I don't know what it is, so I had to ask my dad. See snatch. He said, "You want me to give it to you in layman's term?" I said, "Well, please do." I said, "The lower anatomy of a female." "Oh, okay. Well, that takes care of that. Thanks. Next line, please."
And I know it's kind of cool how we're circling a little bit back to the movie. Is so many of our guests had similar memories of saying, watching it when I was younger, when I was 9, 7, 10, 12, I laughed all through it. But when I rediscovered or rewatched it as I got older and started to catch the subtext and the layers and those double entendres, all of a sudden the movie just blew up into this great comedy. And so I love that discoverability that a lot of people have talked about having while watching this film their entire lives.
You really do have to go back. I think it's this, and the producers are two of Mel's where you have to go back as you're older and hear moments differently. And you get a different interpretation of it. I mean, you could say the same thing about Frankenstein, but I think Blazing Saddles and the producers has this inherited stuff going on. And when you're young, you don't hear it. You just go for the physical comedy, and you're laughing at that. And as you get older, as you said, you go back and go, "Oh, I get what that line means."
Yeah, I think when I was 15, all of a sudden the horse getting punched was not the funniest thing in Blazing Saddles.
Well, then don't get me wrong. It's a funny thing.
It's funny, but then it's like, oh, yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, well.
I mean, just like the joke we're talking here, like land snatching, land, see snatch. Right. And he just goes along. That's funny because you have to be quick and you actually have to be a little bit smart and paying attention to catch that joke. And if you do, you're laughing your butt off.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Because, it just takes you off guard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's almost, a lot of it is almost like the British Fawlty Towers John Cleese movie. You have to really listen to what the line is, but what is the subtextual line aspect of it, because the subtextual part will usually set up the next big moment. And Mel's writing has a rhythm to it. Like Simon had a rhythm to it. And everything that Mel does sets up the next big joke. So I got used to that. I got used to, Mel setting up another big funny moment, even if you don't realize it. And that's only a great writer can do, like Simon or Gelbart or Brooks. Is that there's a method to their madness.
And we're going to have you actually for the next 4 episodes, most of this week. So I'm sure we're going to pepper in these stories as we go. Before we dive into this minute, one of the things we generally ask people, and you've sort of started to hit this topic when we first bring them on, is your memories of Blazing Saddles. You've got a completely different perspective, having been the son of an actor who was in the movie, who probably got shown it maybe in a screening room or with other actors. So do you remember when your dad first introduced you and when you first saw Blazing Saddles?
I was probably around your age, so probably 10, 12, 13 before my mom and dad wanted me to hear that kind of language. And I said to Mom, I said, wait a minute. You want me to hold off a couple of years before I hear that kind of language? If I want to hear that language, I'll just spend an evening with Buddy Hackett. and I'll spare you the therapy. I'll spare you the therapy payments now.
Buddy Hackett.
Oh my God! Buddy and my father were best friends. So I grew up with Buddy, who is a salt of the earth to me. I know there's stories about Buddy, but I think I really understood when I get the whole concept of the whole thing is what really Mel was doing was he really was, even at my age, and my dad taught me this, is Mel is showing just how stupid and dangerous ignorance and discrimination and racism is in this country. He's using humor as the platform to do it. And that's what Gene said in the 40th anniversary Back in the Saddle, is Mel is showing you how stupid racism is, but he's using humor to do it. And that was Gene's point in the DVD thing that he did, because he originally asked Gene to play Hedy Lamarr.
Right, we talked about that.
It was called Black Bart, right?
Well, initially, yeah, the first draft of the script we talked about was called Tex-Ex, then it was Black Bart, then the Purple Sage, and then he said the story was Mel Brooks was in the shower, and all of a sudden Blazing Saddles popped in his head. He goes to his wife, Ann, and says, Ann, what do you think of Blazing Saddles? She said, sounds good, and that's when they went with it.
Well, my dad has to give credit to Anne Bancroft, because if my dad doesn't do the Burnett show, he doesn't get Blazing Saddles.
Well, there you go.
And I'll tell you, most people don't know that, and Mel told me that at my dad's memorial. He says he'd always had my dad in his mind. My dad, if you watch the DVD Back in the Saddle, my dad said he'd asked Carl Reiner. Carl told me that's not true. He'd asked Gene to do when it was at TexX, but my dad didn't hear about it until he got pulled into Mel's office at Warner Brothers, and my dad was like, "There's no way I'm going to keep up with this guy, 2,000-year-old man, Carl Reiner." And he's doing the whole movie. He's doing the whole movie in his office in front of my dad. And my dad's like, "I need a drink." I'm like, "This is just." He never thought he was going to get a role like this in his lifetime, because the first scene, and most of you don't know this, his first day was the paddle.
Yep. Yeah, no, that was, we talked about that, how, and you know it more than I do, so I hate jumping in on this, but reminding our audience, we covered that he felt, looking back, he wished almost he could have had another day to be on the set to sort of redo some things, because he felt sort of that pressure of the first day of performing with the director, Mel Brooks, on stage, all these guys, and here he is supposed to sort of command the scene, and it's day one. That had to be a little unnerving.
And then you have, on top of it, you had to have the physical dexterity to do the paddle and keep it going. And I told my dad, "How did you do that?" I said, the biggest challenge was not to hit Mel in the head with the ball, or Robin Hilton with her breast hanging out.
Right.
It's like, which one do you want to hit first, Mel's nose or Robin Hilton's breast? I said, "Take your pick."
Well, I know my choice.
He had to keep on doing that. He had to keep on doing take after take. And I said, "How did you learn how to do it that fast?" I said, You'll be amazed how much pressure there is to be on and funny in front of Mel Brooks. You learn that paddle thing quite quickly, because he was scared. He was going to, my dad said, "I was so afraid I was going to hit Mel in the head with that paddle." Because every time he did it, Mel was leaning into the moment. And Mel tried, and my dad's 6'3", so he was trying to do it above his head. And so I said, I never thought to ask my dad how many takes that took, but I'm sure it had to be a few. Only my dad and Mel, they look at each other, they start breaking up.
Well, and the genius of that scene is when he gets that paddle going right after Mel Brooks says these are defective, and he's like, "Right as usual, sir." it's a perfect statement of our politicians.
Yeah. "Please wash your sphincters." Well said. I love that line. It's the whole scene is just it really is. I mean, there's so many scenes in the movie that my dad and Mel are just, it's simpatico. They never worked together, so I find interesting that there was a chemistry right away. And even Mel said to me, "It's like your father elevates everybody, Chris." And for Mel Brooks to say that to my own father, that's a pretty incredible thing to say.
Well, and you look at the cast, and I know Mel Brooks has said the same thing about Madeline Kahn and Gene Wilder, in the sense of those kinds of talents just make everybody want to be better. And when you look at how many movies that so many of them were in together, or maybe not all at the same time, but these group of people loved working together, and they brought the best out of each other.
They really did. My dad, obviously, Madeline had done Burnett's show, so they got to work on Burnett together. So, but he'd never worked with Mel. He'd never worked with Gene. He'd never worked with Slim Pickens. But here's the funny thing is, you're in the cover of the dance thing with the dancers. Here's the interesting thing: the guy, when they all break through and they hit Don Dudley's in the stomach, Slim Pickens hits him in the stomach, and one of the dancers calls one of the cowboys, "You buzzers." That's Randy Doney, one of the head dancers on Burnett's show.
Oh, really? Well, you know what? Look at it. This is perfect serendipity steering us right into this minute. So let's go ahead and let me set the stage for our folks today on this Monday. We are going to actually continue where we started last week with the 1874 cast now rolling into a 1974 soundstage. And we just had Buddy getting punched in the stomach. So we're going to start this minute 86 with one of the actors going, "They've hit Buddy! Come on, girls." And they start actually adding into the melee. We're going to end with an actor playing Hitler. Figure Mel Brooks putting a Hitler in here. They lose me right after the bunker scene. So, Chris, let's go ahead and dive right in. One of the things we've discovered along the way, and I'll let you walk this as lightly or as in the face as you want to be, we were more worried about people throughout this entire season dealing with the N-word and other racial epithets. And a lot of people said, in fact, almost everybody said, no, we understand what it was doing, we understand why, and it makes sense. We were actually amazed, Walt and I, that the number of people that still had kind of an issue with sort of making fun of homosexuality in the movie. and they don't understand why that's in there. And my only thing looking back is, well, a 1974 TV audience, Hollywood audience, they were sort of used to the Paul Lynns, the Liberace's, that sort of, we're playing it for the audience, and we may be over the top, but it's almost like we get it. It's funny because nobody really acts quite this way, maybe except for Liberace, but it's different today. So what do you say, looking at it from a 1974 lens versus your typical now current lens?
I have to agree with what Mel said a couple months ago when someone came out about racism, that we have gotten overly sensitive to the point where you can't laugh at the absurdity of the things that go on in our life on an ethnic issue. If we can't laugh at ourselves, then we are really all in trouble as a country. Because you do the joke about acting. You say, an actor will say to you, oh, I'm an actor. It's like, oh, are you a waiter? There's certain stereotypes of, oh, you're a dancer. Oh, okay. You hear a certain joke, and there is a certain inherited stereotype about dancers. Mm-hmm. Oh, you must be on Broadway, or there's certain things you ask a dancer. Oh, you're gay. Oh, okay. Well, your tutu goes both different ways. I don't know. I mean, you can make jokes, but half the dancers in the Burnett show were gay. I didn't think anything of it. They were just dancers to me. I didn't think of it as being a negative or a positive. That's who they were, but it didn't define them as people. And if you start defining people based on their gender or whatever, you don't have the opportunity to get to know them at the core of who they were as people. And that's that person's loss too. Because I don't see Randy Doney or Stan Mason or anybody in the Burnett show as gay. I see them as dancers. Who they are as people are more important than their sexual orientation. So I grew up I grew up with a father and mother who taught me that everyone is equal.
Right. And I think if you do that, then it's not, I mean, we had a guest on who said, look, if I thought you were using words in a way that you were absolutely trying to hurt somebody or go after them or demean them, I'm not going to find it funny. But when you're enjoying the laugh among people who realize you're doing it for the laugh, like, friends like Walt and I cut on each other all the time. If half the things I said to Walt, he knows I'm just cutting on him, we laugh. But if I were to say it meanly,
it actually really hurts.
It hurts. Oh, see, you're ruining my point.
I'm very sensitive.
But I mean, we had people who said that we grew up in a way saying you knew the context, so you would know whether, okay, the word in and of itself, it's always the same word. It's how you use it. And if you're using it to hurt people, then it's bad. But if you're using it for a joke and laughter and we're not hurting anybody, we got to learn how to lighten up and understand, hey, have a sense of humor.
Well, didn't Burton Gilliam in the DVD make that exact point to Cleavon? If you really thought I was going to say this to you, we're going to go to town on this. But this is in the script. And Cleavon and Burton had to do this scene again and again and again. And Cleavon is like, oh my God. I mean, they're mean words. If you take it out of context, they're cruel words. But in the context of the movie, and Burton, Gilliam, and Cleavon had to really talk it out and realize this is just a movie. You can't take this personally.
Right.
And so the fact that they talked it out probably helped Cleavon.
Yeah, and Burton told us that the actual words were, but if you use this outside of the movie, we're going to Fist City.
Yep, Fist City.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, if you think about it, the irony of this whole thing is, and it's so ironic that we talked off the air, we talked before about how Richard co-wrote the movie with Mel, that he was up for the role of the sheriff, and the other person it was up for was Flip Wilson. And neither of them some had this variety show, but Cleavon had come off a Tony Award on Broadway. But Cleavon wasn't a major name, right? And Richard wasn't. I don't think Richard was that big at that in '74.
Richard was definitely, we talked about this in the research we did, was he was certainly a well-known rising comedian, but he also was developing the reputation of maybe not being reliable with showing up on the set.
Yes.
And Warner Brothers said they weren't ready to pay the additional insurance for overruns in the show when they couldn't guarantee, or the filming, when they couldn't guarantee Richard Pryor would be there all the time. And we already talked about this a lot in the early minutes of the movie, that Mel Brooks almost quit the picture, but Richard Pryor convinced him, no, you got to stay on. They still owe me money for writing credits.
Oh, that's right, yeah. And what most people don't realize this unless you watch the movie or talk to Mel, Richard Pryor wrote most of the Mongo stuff.
Oh, yeah. Came up with the entire concept of it, and which is a very funny character.
Mongo, only pawn in Game of Life. But I think there's a line in the movie, I think Mel cut it out because I think somebody just said you can't do that. And I don't know if it's true or not, But I think there's a line in there that says Mongo no fat.
Oh yeah, no, he doesn't say that. He says Mongo straight.
Right.
Mongo's, yeah. He goes, I think he's taking a liking to you. And Mongo's like, oh, Mongo's straight.
I actually was watching MASH last night, and
the movie or the TV show?
The TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And we had talked about this when Mongo was first introduced. The actor who plays Mongo played nearly the exact same character on MASH.
Really? Alex Karras had a guest spot.
Alex Karras, really?
He plays kind of a big, dumb Marine, and he actually hits somebody. Somebody says something, and he kind of jokingly hits him and almost knocks the guy over.
Oh,
and
wow.
So it's nearly the exact same character. And I didn't realize that until yesterday.
Oh, we're going to have to pull that for the show notes and put that in. I'd love to have a link in our listeners group to that episode.
I had no idea. Oh, my God. You know what's weird about Alex Karras? Outside of the Paper Lion.
Oh, yeah, right.
I had not known who Alex Karras was outside of football. Outside of that, I think that was one of his first movies was with Alan Alda.
I think Paper Lion. We talked about the irony that Paper Lion was Alex Karras' first movie, and Paper Moon was Burton Gilliam's first movie, and then the next movie they're both rooming together is on Blazing Saddles.
That is weird.
Isn't that weird?
I didn't know that.
See, look at it. This is great when we can educate the son of Harvey Korman.
Serendipity.
That just shows you how freaking stupid we are to have dove into this for like 6 months of research.
Let me tell you guys, we could do this off the air for hours and throw out 6 Degrees of Gene Wilder and my father until we're blue in the face.
It's almost like we could have an entire podcast.
we could go for hours. I don't know if people would listen, but it would be fun for us.
It certainly would.
So, Chris, let me ask you, in this scene,
Sure.
in this minute that we're looking at, you said you knew a lot or several of the dancers. And who are the other actors in this scene that you know?
Well, I grew up with Dom DeLuise's son, David DeLuise, and I went to school together. I don't know if Alan or we have talked about this. I grew up with a learning disability, which is, for those who don't understand, in layman's term, the learning disability is a delay in the learning process, the inability to retain information. So Dom DeLuise's son, David, and I went to a special ed school. So I've known Dom DeLuise since I was a child. So a lot of people in the scene, unless I look really close, I'd say a good portion of them were dancers. Burl Johns. There's at least 3 brunette people in there. If you really look.
Well, and I would imagine for ease of this kind of a big crowd scene, we talked about how almost all of the background extras for Rock Ridge were about 80 plus stuntmen, and you can see that there's a lot of guys that know how to sell and throw fake punches and receive those fake punches. And I got to imagine that these dancers, Mel Brooks was not going to spend 3 or 4 weeks with choreography. He was going to say, okay, we need people who can very quickly on set. We don't have time to take weeks to do this scene. This first joke we get to, you said you knew this guy when we have this big burly cowboy goes up to one side of where they've got, I guess, the tunnel of love. You've got 2 guys next to each other, and the cowboy basically throws one guy into the water. Then the guy that's remaining has his cane, and he yells at him and hits him over the head with his cane.
You mother Why, you miserable...
Now, my copy, I don't know if my audio is messed up or if it's meant to show that he didn't know how to actually swear properly. I swear he's saying, you mother shiver. Because
I swear I thought he said you buzzer That's what I thought I heard Randy say.
Because I was expecting mother effer, but when I hear it, it's definitely like a sh and a v. Like, so I'm like, is he saying mother shiver?
Yeah,
which I don't know if it's just
Randy.
I'm like, you're already R-rated. Why would you edit yourself?
Well, I don't know, but I think the way Randy says it, he high pitches his voice and like says, "You buzzer," like an over dramatic version of just saying it plain. He says it really animated. You buzzers. And he hits him over the head with it.
You know what? It could very well be. I just listened to it again, and you know how you can, like you can force yourself to hear it one way and then hear it the other.
Right.
Now I hear it the way you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Here's the problem with when they aired Blazing Saddles on Family Turner Classics. They butchered it. I don't even know why they even bother putting Blazing Saddles on shows with Robert Osborne or shows, things like that. You gotta play Blazing Saddles as is. If you take anything out, it ruins the whole movie.
I would agree with that for the most part. I will tell you this, though. Growing up in Detroit, this is, again, another story that's now going to be told for maybe the 7th or 8th time this season. But the first television network version, there were very few things in terms of racial epithets that were bleeped out. Now, foul language, you can only do so much with the FCC.
Right.
But the funny thing was, all of the fart noises were bleeped out. They were all horse whinnies.
I don't get that. I don't get that.
They were dropping the N-word and like racial epithets left and right. They left as much as they possibly could in terms of the foul words, but then the farts, they bleep.
You know, all I can figure is that...
Don't get me started on the irony of that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I guess it had never been done before, so they didn't know who they were going to...
Well, they had certain standards. We can use the N-word because that's okay, but a fart, my goodness, we draw the line here, sir.
Ridiculous.
Well, I mean, think about it. When they showed it at Warner Brothers, the first thing the producer said to Mel is, you can't be making these noises on screen. And Mel said, look, after the first fart, you're not going to hear anything else. You're just going to hear laughter.
Right.
So it doesn't matter after the second fart or the same or whatever they do with it, because Slink Pickens comes out and says, or Taggart says, do you want some beans or whatever? And he says, I think you've had enough. I mean, it's just, come on, really?
Yeah. Oh, for so many people, that's one of their all-time favorite scenes, because when they saw it, that was the first time they ever saw something like that. So it just left a mark that stays with them to this day.
Right.
So this guy that says whether he says buzzard shit or you mother shiver.
He said he takes the cane and I think Randy says, from what I remember, he said, you buzzard shit, in a high-toned voice. Buzzard shit. And he hits him over the cane. And then they come out the other side. He said,
I'm parked over by the commissary.
I love this. As a kid, even, I thought how funny this was. I didn't necessarily understand the gay undertones, or in this case, overtones. It was funny to me that this guy goes in, they're having a fight, and they come out like, oh, hey, we're best friends. We'll come on over, and my car's parked over by the commissary. We're going to go hang out, grab a cup of coffee.
Yeah, I'm parked on the other side. I'm like, really?
And you
go from hitting a guy to asking him out for coffee? I mean, that's funny.
Yeah, and the funny thing is if you were offended 2 minutes ago about the fact that there was gay stereotyping, to have the big burly cowboy fall for the dancer, and they're going to go out to the car.
Yes.
I mean, come on, they're making fun of everybody and everything. Lighten up.
That's you said it right there. Mel leaves he leaves no Jew unturned.
No Jew unturned.
Everybody. he leaves nobody. Everybody gets it in this movie. Every stereotype, cowboys, whatever you name it. And he goes back to this idea of we got to be able to laugh at ourselves. Irregardless of what skin color we have, there are certain stereotypes about all of us. You know, the first time I met my wife, she said, are you sure you're not gay? I said, why? She said, nobody in their right mind should know this much about fucking Broadway.
Wow.
I said, you mean the pinky ring didn't give you away, honey?
That's hysterical.
Oh, my God. So, I mean, yeah, I grew up with Broadway people. I grew up with the whole full spectrum of the business. So I was taught to love all aspects of performers and performing. I didn't just limit myself to TV or cartoons or variety shows or whatever, because I cover the full spectrum, because I have other relatives in my family who are actors. My cousin on my dad's side, distant cousin, is R.D. Johnson from Laugh-In.
Oh, wow.
Most people don't know that.
We do now.
We do now, and most people don't know that. And we talked about this because of Frisco Kid. My stepfather played Vincent Bugliosi in Helter Skelter.
Really?
And he's the one that plays Diggs, Daryl Diggs, one of the brothers in Frisco Kid that beats out Gene Wilder. And it's just weird how all this parallels.
Yeah, so for our audience who may not know about the movie Helter Skelter, not a comedy.
No, not a comedy, not a Gene Wilder film.
No.
Probably won't be a Patreon special.
Well, it's definitely not a sitcom.
Manson, wasn't that Marilyn's dad? Wait, no.
No, we're talking
it was about the Manson murders.
Yeah. Well, pulling back to the next shot, which I love these little inserts, because as soon as we have the scene of these two guys walk into the commissary, we pull back. We do get a shot of Lyle in the very background doing a bunch of running around and stuff, so we do get to at least still see some principal actors. But then the next little vignette is we come to the very foreground. It's a medium close-up with another dancer who's punching the chest of this giant man in a cowboy outfit, going, "You brute, you brute, you brute, you vicious brute!" But then he starts crying on his chest. And then the cowboy, once again, the comedy here. He's just comforting him like, I get it, little man. It's all good.
Someone tell me, is that guy? I thought that guy was Ben Johnson.
I think that is who it is.
I thought it was.
Yeah, because I'm
not sure, though.
It's a little hard to tell, but I think that's who that is.
I swear I thought it was when I first saw it. And I think the guy who's doing the beat on his chest, I think that's Burl Johns, another dancer from the Burnett Show.
You know, one problem with this movie that makes it a little bit hard on us is that so many of the actors and performers in it were uncredited. So you kind of have to go through and you got to do some digging, and IMDb does a lot, and a lot of people have done some detective work to really help string it together. But IMDb is subject to error as well. It's public, people can add and make changes.
I've caught IMDb on a lot of mistakes. They probably don't want to hear the name Korman ever again. Ever.
That dadgum Korman kid again. Oh, God, it's Chris.
Oh, God, God, does he not have anything else better to do but to make us feel wrong about his father's career? That's why if you guys got it right, I wouldn't have to call you up and send death threats. I mean, it's one thing to be stalked by a car insurance thing on your phone, but to have to stalk IMDb, I need to get a job. This is ridiculous.
Well, one of the things I like...
You said it right there. It's amazing how many uncredited, because if you look at the credits at the end of the movie, I don't think half the people are mentioned.
No, it goes by with less than 60 seconds of actual screen time. Yeah. And it's probably 5 or 6 screens of just names where it's just like flash a bunch of names, then flash a new bunch of names, and flash a new bunch of names, and that's it. It's very, very expedient, and that's how they did a lot of movies in the early 70s. There wasn't about these credits that lasted 15 minutes and thanked, everybody, including all of the CG artists and matte painters. I mean, it was just quick and done. I want to point this out because some of our listeners like seeing some of the details that they would normally miss if they're watching the scene full speed. When you go back and watch this minute and this guy's pounding on the cowboy, you brute, just off to the cowboy, just behind him, all these actors are behind him, all still roughing each other up. There's this funny scene where you've got a woman and a man sort of doing a weird half dance, half arm lift move to try to make it look like they're fighting. It's hysterical. And on the other side, you see 2 stunt guys. One guy is getting ready to throw a punch at another guy and sells it really well. His head goes the wrong way, but it doesn't matter because we're paying attention to this poor guy up front being consoled by a cowboy.
I did not notice that. I have to go back and watch this again. Oh, my God.
That's the beauty of the stupidity of watching a movie 1 minute at a time.
Well, no, but it actually is a very smart way to do it because unless you watch it on a big screen, there are a lot of things about that scene in the dancing that you miss because Mel pans and he moves the camera and he has a different angle and he's moving the camera left and right and he's trying to capture the whole fight scene. He's doing it rather quickly. So there's things you miss. Like IMDb swears, and I don't know if this has been proven, guys, but supposedly Gilda Radner was an extra in one of the scenes when the church guy yells something about "and duck" and the bomb blows up. IMDb claims that Gilda Radner was an extra in one of the church scenes. I don't know if that's been proven.
Wow.
Yes. So I'm trying to think, how weird is it that Gilda would end up marrying Gene Wilder many years later? But
I'm going to say this with a handful of what do you call it? With just a modicum of what's the phrase when you want to with a grain of salt. I'm going to do this with a healthy grain of salt. I'm not entirely sure that's accurate, but it would be if she truly was. If somebody. Hey, listeners, if you absolutely know for a fact, because you heard it from somebody who heard it from somebody, and so on and so on. But I had not heard that Gilda Radner was in the cast.
That is absolutely a new one on me.
I heard that 12 years ago, and I can still not been able to confirm it because supposedly, unless Mel, there are uncredited people in that scene when he says, and duck. Unless the camera panned. Now, Mel, there's somewhere on IMDb that says Anne was in that movie. I don't ever see Anne Bancroft in that movie, unless she was uncredited. And she was one of the members of the Rockridge residence people. Because Anne Bancroft stands out to me easily. Her face is unrecognizable.
No, I mean, that is a true statement. Anne Bancroft was actually in the congregation. And Mel put her in there just to have her on the set and sort of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge Easter egg for people who knew Anne Bancroft. But yes, that one is confirmed. I knew that one, but we didn't have anything about Gilda.
I didn't see anything about Gilda. That's crazy.
That's what's weird. That is freaky. But I'm sure you guys heard the whole story about how Mel got. Well, it's in the 40th anniversary DVD thing, so I don't need to beat a dead horse. Literally, pardon the expression, beat the dead horse. I was saving that one for you guys. The whole thing when he asked Madeline, "Can I see your legs?" And she's like, "Oh, you're one of those type." And no, he's like, "No. If you're going to do a Marlena Dietrich send-up, you have to have great legs. If you're going to straddle that chair, you got to have great gams." And she's like, "Are you kidding me? Really? This is how this audition is going to go? What a pervert old man you are." It's like, I'm happily married to Anne Bancroft. Give me a break here. But she nailed it. And what my dad said in the DVD was true. Malin was as good as anybody in any genre, in any field in this movie. In this industry, she was as good as it gets, and she nailed Marlena Dietrich so incredibly. And if you don't know who Marlena Dietrich is, you want to go back and go, "Oh my God, she did really nail it."
Yeah, she really did.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was perfect casting. Well, does Madeline Kahn do anything poorly?
No, I don't think so. I
She's
felt
just
that for
brilliant.
her sitcom. I mean, her sitcom was awful, but that wasn't her fault.
Oh, no.
You can't. It's hard to write for people like my father and Madeline, because they can do so many different things well. And to limit themselves to a sitcom is blasphemy to me. It's just, you just don't limit two people, great artists who can do everything, to a sitcom. And I don't know why they thought that was a good idea. And I could tell Madeline wasn't happy. You could tell, when she did the Cosby thing, she didn't have to carry the whole show on her own. But
I don't want to mix up the final product of a film versus the performance. Madeline Kahn, to me, always was just on no matter what.
Yeah, she was amazing.
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
Now, I don't know if you know these two guys. The next little insert is, which, by the way, even as a kid was funny and is still funny as an adult, to watch these two guys do this hand-in-hand sort of weird front stroke, backstroke thing in the water. Like, and I'm trying to think message-wise, is Mel Brooks saying, even in the most ridiculous of times, people can find love?
Well, I kind of think it was just Mel being Mel. That was just kind of crazy. And that has to be the first time I ever saw synchronized swimming.
Oh, God. Well, when there's a chance, when we get to do the day to cover the dialogue of Raisinets.
Oh, yeah, that'll be coming up later this week. And there's a
story behind that.
Well, there's
oh my God!
Yeah, because apparently, there's an interview I read when Mel Brooks was interviewed by Playboy magazine about including the Raisinets line. So we'll talk about it when we get to it. I don't want to do it now. If we did it all in this episode,
we'll save it.
We wouldn't have anything left to talk about.
Well, one thing, right?
I'm really worried about that.
I'm sure. Well, one thing that's kind of funny about synchronized swimming that I don't know if this is Mel being Mel with his German fascination. But the first recorded competition of synchronized swimming was in 1891 in Berlin, Germany.
Really?
Yep. But it was in 1891.
Oh, that's almost apropos.
And it was Berlin. So I don't know if Mel Brooks knew that or if that was just a kind of a crazy coincidence. I'm sure he would claim that he knew that.
Yeah.
Well, Mel is a pretty smart man. He does his reading. He's a very smart articulate.
Yeah, we've discovered how smart he and all the writing actually. There's so many layers and so many inside jokes that even if you don't get the third and fourth layer, it's still funny. But when you start realizing how much they knew about history and literature and art and through it all, it's amazing.
It really is. I mean, I'm 51. When I was in my 20s, I watched it again, and what's my 30s and my 40s. Every time I watched it, I go, okay, I get this now. I didn't get it when I was 20. I got it when I was 30. I got a little bit more when I was 40. So every generation, every year, 20, as I get older, I picked on something else. I go, oh, I didn't know that.
Just think when we're 70, we're really going to have it nailed.
We'll finally know what everything means.
Oh, God. If I'm watching it on 80 and I still have my teeth, I'll be happy.
I want to do one more little talk about what's actually in the theatrical production, because we're not finished with the minute, but then we pull back from the two guys doing the synchronized swimming, and we get another long shot showing everybody. I want to point out a couple of things. You've got Reverend Johnson on one side, and he's like preaching to everybody. You've got Mongo literally walking through the entire screen, carrying somebody above his head.
Right.
And dancing up at the very top of the double stairs with the Eiffel Tower behind him. We've got Gabby Johnson doing what looked like he was doing on the roof when Bart first showed up.
Yes. This one scene shows that this movie has broken out into complete lunacy. I mean,
absolutely.
It is completely off the hinges.
All right. Now, do we all agree we like the way so far these theatrical minutes have gone, including this minute here? Okay, you agree. What about you? Okay, let me go to the script, because we talked about just getting done talking about how brilliant these guys are.
And now for
the truth. Let's go to what was originally in the shooting script before apparently Mel Brooks or others decided we're going to throw away these pages. We don't know. Probably I can see Mel Brooks going, I don't know who wrote this shit. We're going to do it differently. And the first joke, right after they've hit Buddy, come on, girls.
They've hit Buddy, come on, girls.
Which is exactly in the script. You tell me whether or not this would have been a better version. Right after Come On Girls, dancers rush down the steps with their canes. First dancer goes to a cowboy. You filthy, yet somewhat attractive Western pig. The first dancer smashes the cowboy over the head. The cowboy answers, why, you miserable little fruit. Cowboy punches first dancer out. Cut to. That's it. We don't ever see them coming out the other side talking about going to the commissary. They just have this little exchange and they're done. Next scene, cut to Lyle, 6-gun in hand. He fires 2 shots at the ground in front of a line of dancers. Lyle, okay, pansies, start dancing. The 3 gypsies go into a very elaborate life-saving step. Bart then to Jim. Hey, Jim, baby, do you realize we fought our way all the way up to 1938? Camera pulls back to get a big view of the scene. There's a lot of fighting, mincing, dancing, cursing, and occasionally kissing. That's it. We didn't have any of the inserts. We didn't have any of the you brute. We didn't have the I parked my car over on the other side of the commissary. None of that was in the script.
Without parsing this out too much, I can tell you I'm really happy with what we have on the screen, and I'm glad they didn't shoot what was in the script.
I agree.
Thank bloody God. That stuff wasn't that funny.
No, it really wasn't.
Fruit would have been so obvious to go that route.
Yeah, and by the way, I think that would have been a dated line where, see, I think here we are 45 years later. I honestly think if I went to my kids and go, if I called you a fruit, do you know what that means? They'd probably go, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Whereas the implied, sexual preference of the characters, we don't need to be told.
We don't. And that's really kind of it's definitely an insult.
Oh, you think?
And, I mean, it really is it's really a cutting insult.
It is.
I mean, it's not even funny. It's very uncomfortable, really.
And then the guy saying, you filthy, yet somehow attractive Western pig.
Yeah, it's just kind of dumb.
I like it so much better seeing they go down one side of the tunnel, they come up arm in arm, and they're like, hey, parking my car
That's
over here.
much more funny.
It is.
Much more funnier.
No.
Much more funnier. Okay, well, you're allowed. You're from,
that is
you're from
20 times
Alabama.
funnier. oh, God. Well, my wife is from Alabama. She'll appreciate that.
Yeah, it's much funnier.
Here's one that you guys can help me with. You guys can help me with this.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's intentional. It's more of a scenic thing. When Alex Karras gets blown up by the bomb, and they do the Warner Brothers music, and Cleveland walks out with his ears plugged in.
Mungo like candy.
My question is, do they purposely make it realize that the backdrop is so close you can tell it's a matte painting?
Oh, when he walks out, yeah.
Like, all right, so the reason I bring that up is because when they break through the wall, there's a Western town background behind there. So
right.
Is Mel intentionally inferring, once you go off the reservation and now you've broken the fourth wall, it lets everybody know that this is a movie within the movie, almost with that theory in mind? Because he does the same thing in High Anxiety with the boom. In the bathroom with Bob Ridgely and Mel, he shows the boom. So I sometimes wonder if Mel is indicating, I'm letting you in on the joke by letting you know this is a movie, and I'm going to show you the boom. Now, the guy who plays the gay guy in the bathroom with Mel, Bob Ridgely, he's the one that plays the guy, Quasimodo, hanging everybody.
Oh, yeah, Boris. Boris,
That's Bob Ridgely. Yes. What's this one, master? Yeah, so Bob Ridgely. Yes. Oh, my God. Now, here's one I don't get. You guys can help me with this. The Gillespie killings.
Okay.
What? I don't get that reference.
Oh, see, you should go back and listen to those minutes. We poured over that.
I don't think there's minutes.
I will go back. But in general terms,
I can tell you.
Okay, I'll go back and listen to it.
No, we can summarize.
Okay.
There was an actor, John Barrymore, as an actor in Hollywood, and this was the joke. He had been confined to a wheelchair and was told he only had about a year to live, so that he did one movie, and he was playing the role of Gillespie. Well, he survived long enough that they made another movie where he played basically the same character, and then he made another movie and he just, for like 7 years, he kept living when everybody kept saying this was going to be his last picture. This is going to be his last picture. So this was Mel Brooks' way of saying, all right, that's it. That's the end that's the Gillespie killings. We're getting rid of him from now on.
Oh, my God. Okay, now, see, I have a far greater appreciation for that line now. Now, I don't know how many times it took for my father to hit himself in the head with that window, but it now explains some of the brain damage later on.
Well, and that's the thing. We didn't understand it growing up, but if you go back and listen to our minutes, I thought we had some pretty good theories of what we thought it was when we were growing up. So they're
well,
pretty
I like to hear your theories because is the window that loose that it keeps him coming down on his head? I mean, can you not lift a window up tight enough so it holds? It just seems to fall down right on his head. And I'm thinking, I'm waiting for his toupee to fly off. That's my next theory. It's like, this sucker flies off. You're not getting that sucker back. Pardon my French.
Yeah.
Because my dad wore hair pieces. He had like small pieces, big pieces, little pieces. And he used to name his hair pieces Skippy Senior, Skippy Junior. And I'm thinking, if that window hits in the wrong way, that sucker is going to go flying.
Just skim it off the top of his head.
Yeah, and that's it. That's the end of my dad for the day, because that window has probably hit his head so many times, it couldn't have felt too good, unless, they made it look like he was really hitting him in the head. But that whole scene with Taggart, too Jewish.
Yes.
That's still one of my favorite lines in the whole, oh, you spared the woman? No, we raped the shit out of her. Oh, my God.
All right, well, let's back to this minute. Now, you tell me, I don't know what it's like today, but I do know that way back when films were being shot in the sound stages on the various sets within the studio lot, you did have a general commissary, and if you were an extra or a small bit player, you might see some bigger actors who chose to come here and eat. I love this little scene where we're seeing all these people dressed up in things from a beach bikini movie to maybe some kind of a drama. You see people lined up at the cash register like they're maybe shooting a 30s style, gangster movie. And of course, we got to have Adolf Hitler up front going next to a guy who's dressed like an aging Rocky and in his little yellow robe. And says, he goes, so...
how many days you have left, Joey? They lose me right after the bunker scene.
Which is a great line.
It is an awesome line.
It is a great line. It is so... and the actor looks familiar to me.
Yeah, he's a guy named Ralph Manza.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
And he was born December 1st, 1921, and died January 31st, 2000. And he has 181 credits to his name.
Now, it helped me. Is this? I swear, I thought he played on that series with George Papard. He played his limo driver.
I think he did. Okay, let me run through a couple of his... some
of the bigger, more well-known and what people find interesting to know.
His first credit is The New Adventures of China Smith in 1954, where he plays a character named Gluck. Gluck.
That stands out.
Yep. Then he was on Highway Patrol. He played Jenkins in one episode. And then he plays in a ton of stuff. He was in Judge Roy Bean in 1956. He was in The Enemy Below in 57, Man Without a Gun, Gang War, The Hunters. Now this one has to be a classic. I've not seen this, but I've got to. I Married a Monster from Outer Space, where he plays Ralph the Waiter. That was in 1958. Oh, my
God.
He was in Dragnet in 58 and 59, a couple episodes. I'm just going to skip through a whole bunch of stuff, but he played in a bunch of Westerns. He played in the movie Ben Casey. He played on The Twilight Zone. He was in an episode in 1962, and he played somebody called the Doorkeeper. And I am drawing a complete blank on who that was. He was in The Third Man. He was in Going My Way. He played Charlie. And then he goes through a whole bunch of stuff that we've never heard of.
I'm looking at it too. Oh, Banizak.
Yeah. Yep. And then he played in the 1966 Batman. He was Felix for a couple episodes. He was in Gomer Pyle, USMC. He was on Dragnet in 67.
So more than one Dragnet.
Yeah. He was on the one, the famous Dragnet, right, with Harry Morgan.
Right.
And then he goes through a bunch of stuff. Petticoat Junction, Gunsmoke, 3 Guns for Texas, The Smugglers, The Outsider, Get Smart. Adam 12. It just goes on and on.
So basically, played in a lot of cowboy movies, and so he gets cast as Hitler
and a lot of cop
in
shows.
a cowboy movie.
Of course.
Yep. And then he was on Matlock. He was in Punky Brewster.
No way.
He played the Mall Santa, which he weighs like 93 pounds. So he was on the Newhart Show, Murder, She Wrote. I'm sure he got killed on that like everybody else did. And then his final thing, he was on so much stuff, Mad About You and everything. The final thing he was credited in was the Tangerine Bear, Home in Time for Christmas in 2000. Where he had a voice part there where he played the factory worker.
Interesting.
So, but his last on-screen was actually a show called Boy Meets World.
Oh, I remember that show.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep, in 2000.
Uncle Maury.
So he had a bunch of stuff. He was working all the time, but 181 credits.
Wow.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. But he really does. He's got one of the most memorable lines in this movie. They lose me after the bunker scene.
It's fantastic.
Yes, that is a great line.
And this minute's going to end with someone being tossed through the glass half door of the front of the commissary. I have to ask this question as we wrap up, and you tell me this, because, Chris, you probably grew up around the same time as this movie, so you'd probably see actors in the commissary. Do they still do stuff like this today on the movie sets where they've got sort of a public eating area for lunch, or has everybody kind of got their own craft services area now?
Well, a lot of the there was a commissary when my dad did Nut House with Mel, the Fawlty Towers spoof with Alan Spencer, who did Sledgehammer. There was a commissary. Now, most studio production shoots will have what they call a crafts table for the crew people or whatever. But there was commissaries, Universal, Warner Brothers, they did have their own. But, some of them they've turned into, people go there for lunches to eat. Because they would turn, back in the 70s or 80s, that was like the place you went because whoever was the chef there, it was considered a high-end menu. And when you think of commissary food, I'm sorry, when I think of commissary food, I don't think of high-end food. I think of airplane food. I think of commissary food. But somewhere along the line, the studios say, if we're going to attract certain people and we want certain people having lunch here, we get up the ante. And
you don't, when you think commissary, when you think in Hollywood commissary, you're not thinking Yankee bean soup, coleslaw, tuna surprise?
well, maybe in the early 70s, yes. But in the 80s, as I got older, it was five-star dining.
Gotcha.
Because it became a touristy thing. You had executives dining. So you had to really wow these people. And eating Big Macs and French fries just ain't going to do it for,
Gotcha.
You heard the whole story about John Wayne and Mel.
Well, the story we've been told.
This movie, yeah.
The story we were told, and we brought this up, is that John Wayne was approached to be in the movie, and he said, "Look, I can't do it, but I'll be the first in line to buy a ticket."
Absolutely. Now there are stories outside of Gig Young playing Gene's role. I'm sure you guys can confirm this. Johnny Carson's name could come up once.
We read that somewhere.
Yeah,
I don't know how serious
too.
that was. If it was sort of like, he saw him and said, "Hey, would you want to be playing this?" You might know more than I do. I can't find anything besides one reference in a trivia section of a webpage that I couldn't find really corroborated any other place, honestly. So it may be true. I don't know if it, but
I can ask him next time I talk to him. Next time I talk to Mel, and I have to talk to Mel soon because Richard Pryor Jr. had asked me because there's a lot of holes in his relationship with his dad that Mel can fill in for for Richard Jr., so I told Richard Jr. I would call Mel on his behalf to get Mel on the phone with Richard Jr. And that's one of the ironies of this whole thing is about, I knew Mel on a peripheral because of my father. I was on the set of History of the World Part 1 the whole time. So I got to know Mel. And I tell you, to be able to call Mel Brooks and have his assistant put me through. And I always said, look, Mel's 96, let him rest. She says, no, seriously, because he'd want to talk to you. I said, no. I said, Kristen, don't bother him. I said, no, Chris, he'd want to talk to you. So she puts me through every time I call. And Mel's like, what can I do for you, Chris? I said, no, I don't want anything. I just want to tell you I love you. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate everything you did for my father. And, he got me tickets to the producer. But if I need anything, he said, just call me. Whatever you need, just call me. That is, you have no idea how mind-blowing it is for Mel Brooks to want to talk to you at any time of the day. Just call me.
That's really cool. Well, he must like you.
It's cool and mind-blowing to me.
He must like you more than us. We keep leaving messages, but they don't get to his desk, I don't think.
Yeah, they end up in file 13, I think.
Or
maybe he just forgot.
Well, at 96, his memory is probably, it is what it is for Carl and Mel are up there, so it's like I try not to bother either one of them too much.
Gotcha.
But when Ann died, I had to send my condolences to him, and I didn't want to bother him when Ann died. But it's just to call him up and just say hi, Mel. And I asked him honestly. I said, what you would clean up, Mel? Take all the bloopers from High Anxiety, History of the World Part 1, Young Frankenstein, Blazing Saddles, and put it on a DVD. Do you know how much money you would make showing those bloopers? He said, Chris, I'd have to go through a vault, my shoe drawer. God knows where these suckers are. Because I don't know how, if it's not microfiche, but they have to be transferred to something to sustain the quality of the reel. So they got to be somewhere. So my question is, why hasn't someone gone to Mel and say, put these on DVD or Blu-ray, take each movie, like his collection, and show the behind the scenes, the bloopers and the mistakes, whatever. Anybody would want to see those. Us three alone would eat that up.
Oh, yes. I'd love it.
Absolutely.
I'd pay for that.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you want to make them rich, you'd have to. So.
Yeah, well.
All right. Well, let's bring a close to this minute because we still have tomorrow yet to come. Before we wrap up, because we're right as where it looks like the fight is going to pour into the commissary here. Chris, you've been our guest. You've been giving us a lot of behind the scenes, a lot of details that we just can't find anywhere else. But is there anything about this 1 minute we've been looking at today, this minute number 86, that you might have had in your notes or something you wanted to mention before we move on to tomorrow?
Remind me, which one is it? Before my dad mouths the dirty word?
Yeah, no, this minute 86 starts with the come on girls and is ending with someone about to be thrown through is being thrown through the window of the door of the commissary. So I think we pretty much covered the entire minute. I don't know if you had anything left, though, with this minute.
I'm trying to think. I think it's funny how Mel transitioned it from the stage into the commissary, how he transitioned it. What that made me laugh is all the people going into the commissary coming out with whipped cream and stuff on their face. That made me laugh.
Well, hold that for tomorrow because that actually is going to be in tomorrow's minute.
But so. that sounds like something that would happen today. If you pissed off the wrong executive. All right, well, we'll save the my father mouthing the dirty word for tomorrow. But
okay.
To be honest with you, I had to go back and figure out what the hell he was saying.
Okay, good. I need you to help us with that for tomorrow because we will have a question tomorrow about that. Walt,
okay.
In your notes for this minute number 86, anything that we're missing?
No, I think we've covered it pretty well.
So the word is no. Right. Okay, good. No.
No. Here's I'm trying to think.
That's okay. You know what? We're going to get you back tomorrow. So that way you've got all tonight to think about it, and all tomorrow we'll get you back, and we'll have you for our Tuesday episode. So let's go ahead and close this one out. Chris, you've been our guest. I know you have you co-produce a radio show called TV Confidential that I'm sure is available through either streaming or online. They may even have a podcast about it that they put out. So tell us a little bit, maybe like a website or how do people get to that show, and how can people maybe get more in touch with you?
Well, I'm on Facebook. I'll tell you a great site. You want to reach out to me. I have a page on Facebook. It's called Burnett Bananas, because I felt like there were people in Wesley Hyatt's book about the Carol Burnett show that didn't get their due. So my whole reason for creating the Burnett Bananas page was to give people who were from behind the scenes of the Burnett show, related to the Burnett show, to come on and share stories about their life and what the Carol Burnett show meant to them in their childhood. So I ask all you and your friends, your family, to go on there and look at Burnett Bananas. I will accept you ASAP, because we post videos, we talk about scenes and memories of that show that meant a lot to us as a childhood, because that show was the tapestry of my childhood. And I have such fond memories of the Burnett show. It's my way of sharing. So it's my way of connecting with everybody on Facebook who might not normally have a connection with me, who want to talk about my father or Carol or Vicky or whoever, and connect with them in a way that's special. Because that's one of the great things about being his son is I get to meet people that my father affected that I never got to meet. That is the best part about being his son.
Yeah, that's really
I
cool.
really have to say that. And I only have one criteria on my page. As long as everybody agrees that I'm right, we're fine.
Good.
I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
It's good to be the king.
It's good. Oh, God. We do history of the world.
No.
We can do history of the world separate. We can talk about history of the world lines. Don't be saucy with me, Bernays.
We could almost requote the whole movie if we wanted to. Unfortunately, Gene Wilder's not in it. So,
unfortunately, but.
Yeah. All right, Walt, let me go over to you. For our listeners, Walt, how can people learn a little bit more about the Wilder Ride?
Probably the best way to learn about the Wilder Ride is to go to facebook.com/the Wilder Ride and follow us there. Yeah, that is convenient. And then press the button to join our listeners group. You'll be asked a couple of real quick questions, and then you can get in on all the craziness there. There's a lot about this movie, other movies, all kinds of other entertainment. So that's really the best place to find out about us.
Absolutely. And come on back tomorrow, folks. Tuesday, Chris Korman will be returning with us as this fight is going to continue spilling into the commissary. So we're going to have that, and it's going to end with the mob beginning to run out of the Warner Brothers lot, splitting in two. Half going to go one way, half the other way. Well, this whole movie's doing that. So why wouldn't we do that as the mob splits up? But you're going to have to come back tomorrow for that. For this, the Wilder Ride. Walt, I'm parked over by the commissary if you want to meet me after.
No.
You mother shiver. Or is that you buzzard shit?
I've got to get running. I've got my synchronized swimming class.
Oh, well, that's why I parked close to the pool.
I have in my brain is like fried with blazing saddles.
Okay.
If it helps.
All right, well then let's do this. If we don't need to review, Walt, do you need to watch this one time through?
I think I'm good.
You think you're good? Okay, good.
No, I know it. I know it cold.
So here we go. Everyone clear your throats. And Walt's looking like, clear my what?
I am not a professional. I don't need to clear anything.
The chef says something. He's a big, heavy guy with a mustache.
Yeah, I don't think in this minute, though. It's going to be next minute.
Okay, maybe the next minute.
So you're remembering everything from tomorrow, which is really pretty cool. I wish I could do
that. I'm just trying to think.